In this video, we're going to look at a few tips, technical tips and rules from Richard Donchian. Stay tuned. Hey traders, a very warm welcome to you. So Richard Donchian, pretty famous technical guy. He has got some interesting rules about technical aspects of patterns, specifically trend lines, which is what he was kind of all his studies were based on, that I thought I'd share with you now in this video. Okay, so I've got a few of them. He's got quite a few, but I've broken them down. I'm just going to split them up. I'm going to do the three with some extras here that I think are probably quite good, and actually ones that myself I've looked at and thought, you know what, that makes sense, and he's actually got rules for them, and I like that. And maybe you like that from your perspective of trading, stuff you've observed. When you see actual studies that confirm your eyeball observations, you think, well, actually, yeah, maybe I can start to add more weight to that in my setup strategies and plan. All right, so crawling along, what do I mean by that? He basically says that when we have a trend environment, so let's say we've got this situation here, we've got a trend line, uptrend line, a channel, whatever it may be, and the market starts to crawl along the upper end of the channel, expect a potential breakout of that channel. So in other words, you know, if you think about supply demand, you've got this channel that's been two-way trade, but you've had like a broad uptrend in this scenario. As it starts to really start to hug that upper channel and just keep pushing, and sellers really haven't got anything left in them at all to push it to the lower channel, he is saying expect that to cause a breakout, just purely because it's like pent up buyers. All of a sudden buyers are just going to push it, sellers are going to capitulate, shorts are going to cover, is going to cause a breakout of the channel. So if you spot that kind of thing, then be aware, or either be aware from a case of, hey, I want to get involved on the long side, or of course other way around. If you're thinking of, you've been trading this range, you're thinking of going short on that upper channel for a pushback to the lower end of the channel like that, be very cautious if it's been hugging the upper end too much. And I've got an extreme picture there where I've kind of shown it very hugging it, but that could still be, you know, we've gone much more narrow. Instead of the big ranges from before, you've narrowed it. In other words, buyers have stepped in far quicker on retracements than they have before, which could indicate that we could have a bit of explosion on the buy side. And obviously flip it around for the bear side as well. Counter trend breaks. This is actually one of my favorite strategies, and I've covered this before in previous videos, but nice to see that it's kind of confirmed with some of the more academic experts when it comes to technical analysis and what have you, and that kind of stuff. Counter trend breaks, he says, look for these and trade them in the direction. So what does it mean by that? So we have a downtrend situation here. This is the broader downtrend, imagine. We then have a slight counter trend move away from the broader trend, obviously being counter trend. So he's then saying, listen, you can draw a trend line under that, and it's quite good trade to sell a break of that trend line that's going back in the direction of the move. So in a broad sense, this would kind of look like this. You know, you pull back and then you're setting that in there and you're drawing your trend line across here, and that's, if we zoomed into it, that's what it looked like, kind of a candlestick or a bar chart. He's saying that's a good strategy. I think that's a good strategy. It's one of my preferred strategies as well. It's a good way of framing the trade. And also you can put your stop above there as well, above that high. So you've got a very specific entry point. This can carry on retracing for as long as you don't have to be clever about it. You can say, okay, as long as you need. I could add stuff in. I like to add stuff in like a 20 period moving average or whatever it may be. But sticking to his rules, this is kind of what he says. And he says, you know what, if you get those, it's not a bad trade to take, and you can trade it and then trade it in the direction of the trend. Hold it for as long as you can. All right, what's the last one? Last one's volume. Difficult to kind of display this on the board, but this is volume. And what he's basically saying with this is, he says, listen, if you're in a channel and you're testing the uppers and lowers, and let's say if we're trading that kind of, this is very textbook, obviously, and very symmetrical, but if we were trading this, we would, the textbook says, you know, you're long here, aren't you? You're long here, you're short here. In the real world, you probably just want to be buying the longs on a test of that because of the uptrend, because you want to stick with the trend, but you're using this channel as a way of defining when to get back on board, right? So forget about the short side of that for now. That's being ultra aggressive, and it's probably better for a downtrend. So he's basically saying, listen, if you're approaching the lower end of a trend line, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a channel, it could be a trend line or a channel, but I've just done a channel here for kind of visualization purposes, or visual purposes, should I say. He's basically saying, listen, as volume declines, so imagine this is volume here, and we've got some decent volume there. As it's declined, and you can put a moving average volume on that, or you can eyeball it however you choose. When you're getting to these points on declining volume, then it's got more weight to it to buy it. So you can feel more confident going long there than if the volume was kind of a little bit bigger or a little bit more than previous tests of it. So ultimately what he's saying there is, hey, if there's big volume, just be careful as it approaches that trend line if you're looking to fade that and go long for a bounce, because the volume might indicate that this thing's going to break, or I guess overshoot before it kind of goes, because momentum might push it through before buyers step in because of that volume. So he recommends the best way of trading that kind of thing is to wait for volume to die down, very small, drift it down, just test that level, ting, you take your long and you look for a push back up. If it's extreme volume, stay clear of them. And some other little extras here, guys, which I didn't want to kind of draw, just wanted to discuss. Volume climax. When we're breaking out of a trend line, look for a volume climax to exit and scale out the trade into rather than add to it, because that might be the last of the order, the last of the people, the last of the kind of explosive move before it consolidates a bit and maybe sets up again, but just being aware of that, possibly wanting to scale out into that climax. The second one is watch gaps. He says, don't expect gaps to fill. Just be careful and watching out for kind of exhaustion gaps, breakaway gaps. See if you can distinguish between the 2 or 3 or 4, however many gaps you want to put in your library, so that you know, hey, this is potentially an extra boost in the trend. It's a breakaway gap, or hey, it's exhaustion because then the day, intraday, we've kind of reversed and closed near lows. I might want to use that as a signal to close the position. So he says, watch out for gaps. And actually, you're using those as a point of saying, okay, I want to get in or want to get out. It's not a bad kind of way of trading this. The final thing is major support and resistance. You know, if we've broken out of one of these trend line positions, or you're trading it against in the trend, or whatever it may be, watch out for major support and resistance. So if that had broken out, if you've got a big key resistance level there from multi-years ago, or whatever it may be, watch out, because that could stall it temporarily or reverse it for a while before it has another go. So his kind of approach is, you know, be aware of that. He doesn't say necessarily close your position, but just be aware of that. Obviously, if it's strong enough, you'll get an extra bit of juice as it breaks through that. But being cautious that if it's gone a long way and broken out and hitting resistance, it might be enough just to stall things. It might be prudent to take some off the table, wait for a bit of an unwinding before a continued shove in your direction. Anyway, guys, those are a few tips, tricks, rules from Richard Donchian. Hope you liked them. Thumbs up if you did. I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.